if I were to start a new online business, what I would do is I'd order products to my house and then ship them out of my house. That really adds a good like reputation and trust value to your brand.
We will be meeting two of my good friends from the city of Manchester. Went to university there, two very talented e-commerce entrepreneurs who will tell us about their journey and what they've been learning and basically the incredible stuff they've achieved already during their studies, which is obviously something you see very, very rarely. So the first one we have here is Nick Tefft, and he's had the entrepreneurial bug for a very long time. As soon as he starts speaking, you will notice the not very Manchester typical accent because he originates from the US, but now he came to uni to Manchester. Here in the UK, he launched and grew Freelove, a hugely successful e-commerce brand. He had a team, got over 500,000 in revenue, basically hit Shopify's top #1 most visited stores, basically brilliant stuff, all during his studies of international business. And now he focuses on scaling brands in the super duper famous and awesome The Hut Group, the British e-commerce giant that operates over 100 direct-to-consumer brands. So obviously this guy knows his way around direct-to-consumer brands, how to start an e-commerce store from scratch. And Nick, we welcome you. Thank you for taking the time, and we are very lucky to hear some e-commerce startup 101 knowledge and ninja hacks straight from the master himself.
Cool. So yeah, I started back in, 2019. So it was kind of like around when Shopify and like drop shipping became, you start seeing it on YouTube and everyone was like, you have to do it, you have to do it. And I remember I was in a small cafe with my friend and I was like, oh, I'm just so sick of working like these crappy jobs and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, you should try drop shipping. And I saw all these ads and it was like people in Lamborghinis. And I was like, this is cap, like this can't be real. But I gave it a try and I really like put a lot of my energy and effort into it. I think when I first started, I was doing like 11-hour days, like 7 days a week, like nonstop. So I started organically on Instagram, just building out like our brand, like creating content. And then from there, we started doing influencer ads. And then after like 8 months of that, we did like Facebook ads, and that's when like things really took off. So I think like our first day doing Facebook ads, for every dollar we would spend, we would get about like $5 back in revenue. So it was really good return. And then from there, we started doing influencer ads on like Twitter, Pinterest, pretty much anywhere we can get like an influencer ad. And then on top of that too, what also worked was we started doing like Google ads. So when I started doing drop shipping, things were a bit different. So you could ship from China for about $1.50. And then like the shipping was about 2 weeks, so it wasn't as bad. Nowadays, the shipping's probably about $5 for one product. And at the same time too, shipping's about 4 months time. So I've seen e-commerce change like quite a bit in that sense. So I think like the next wave of e-commerce is really like, it's not drop shipping, it's actually called like drop servicing. So it's like you'll have a service that you can sell online and it has some feature of like customization. So for example, if you go on YouTube and you type in like Chris Conley, he had a lot of success with like taking pictures of people and then charging them like £50, but he'll have an artist out in like Asia paint a picture of them and it'll be like The Simpsons, and then they'll do like a print on demand system with that. So I think print on demand is really like disrupting e-com, and then just like services in general seem to be the way forward with e-commerce, like customization and stuff like that. It's changed quite a bit from like basic influencer ads as well. So if you guys have questions too, just like drop them in the chat, because I'm always happy to answer questions.
So I will have to start proving some of these questions, right?
Yeah.
But basically, the first one we have here, I see, is whether you think, obviously, you start with like drop shipping and hearing about drop shipping. Would you say that drop shipping, if somebody hears drop shipping for the first time, is it saturated nowadays? Because obviously, a lot of people have heard of it. Would you consider it?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to start a new online business, what I would do is I'd order products to my house and then ship them out of my house. So one, I feel like you can brand that a lot better with your marketing. Like if you make a video of you just like showing on your TikTok or Instagram, like you shipping stuff out every day, that really adds a good like reputation and trust value to your brand versus if you have a factory in China just shipping out your stuff and you don't really know who they are. Like, why would a consumer have any reason to trust you? I think the market for drop shipping is oversaturated, but I think the greater question is e-commerce oversaturated? I think that's a no. I think everyone has a certain like skill or talent or niche that they can get into. And even if you don't have a certain skill, just like give it a try. Like find a product that you think will sell well, build a store. The great thing about Shopify too is it costs you like nothing to really start. It's all time and effort. And a lot of people aren't willing to put in the time and effort, but if you're willing to put in the time and effort to ship stuff out of your own house and, you know, write thank you cards to your customers, like in terms of scaling early on, that's going to make a huge difference versus if you're drop shipping, it's a generic product. Like the customer experience is very low for that because it's literally just a box and it has like, you know, a Chinese tag on it. It's just like from China. They're like, what's this? I thought I ordered from some nice website. But if you take the time to like really do it up, that's how you scale fast. One of my friends back in the US, he's an entrepreneur. He has a very successful like fashion business. And I think the first 3 years, even when he was scaling really high, he'd always take the time to like, if he could drive to the customer and hand them their package, or if he could write them a thank you card, he would. And it wasn't even massive order values either. I think I bought a shirt from him for like 25 pounds and I saw this really nice handwritten card in a nice box. And I was like, this is like the best customer experience I've had, you know, like for the price you pay as well. So making an impact on customers is really important. Drop shipping fundamentally is very hard now. One, it's oversaturated. Two, as I said before, your shipping time, you're looking at about 4 weeks to the US. And then three, the shipping prices are about 3 times higher. So I wouldn't recommend that model. If you're interested in selling e-commerce, either like drop servicing or get a bunch of products that are very cheap but like have a high value here. Say like bracelets, scrunchies. Scrunchies are like a good one. I know one person in Manchester who I met last weekend. He does about 100K a year, and he started last year, and he just sells scrunchies, and they cost about 30p, and he's doing quite well. So there's a lot of products. So like something to look for products too when you're looking at products and ordering them. Just look for products that have a very light weight in terms of shipping if you're going to get them from China when you're starting to build your brand. And then also like they're going to cost you not a lot to ship here as well. But if they have a decent margin, that's really important too. So
awesome. So somebody asked about basically sort of the future of drop shipping and the potential for new ventures, but I think you kind of spoke about that. So do you basically see the future as going more towards this like very brand direct to customer approach?
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a tricky one because like the barrier to entry is very low, which means that essentially anyone can enter the market. And that does make it a lot more competitive, but if you're good, you'll win either way. In terms of print on demand with shirts, I think that's a really hard one right now because I could go on Instagram and find like 10,000 small fashion brands that are like streetwear and it's like you're all the same. So I think it's really one about finding your niche. If you're going to do drop shipping, I would really recommend print on demand or ordering the products yourself and selling them. I know what some people do is they'll drop ship at first. If a product takes off, they'll have a bunch of drop like e-commerce Shopify stores. If they have one product that's really taking off and doing well, they'll spend like 10 grand. I know I obviously you guys are like students, so it's a bit different, but I was in your shoes too. When I started, I probably had about $400 USD. If the product starts taking off, they'll get some money, buy a bunch of it, have it shipped to their house, and then they'll ship it out individually. So there's like different models you can go about it. But yeah, in terms of print on demand, I'd say like really find your niche, you know? Like if you're trying to do streetwear, just think about how many other streetwear brands there are out there. Like just think of something cool. I mean, like even if it's like dogs or goth people or I don't know, like whatever you can think of, like there's so much random stuff people are into that you could, you know, capitalize on. But also think about where the attention is not. So like my business was like LGBT, and I think a lot of people in that community aren't as apt to start a business. But if you go on the complete opposite spectrum, where in America you have like conservatives, so you have like Donald Trump people, I can't tell you how many like Donald Trump stores there were, because those people are much more conservative. So think like, where is there a market, but people aren't necessarily diving into that market? So like, which markets are underfed? And I think that helped me scale quite a bit. Like, I had a few other stores that did in uni as well, and those all kind of followed the same model. So just thinking about like, what's your ideal entrepreneur, what store they're going to start, but like, what's a market that can be serviced but might not have a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, we started one store and it was like this weird anime show that we found, and I can't even remember it. It was like in 2019, but we sold about like $5,000 worth of stuff in like 5 months, just very easily with a few influencer ads here and there, just because like no one was like hitting that market. So the more, like, if you can find a niche market that's different and it's not being served, that's a real key. So don't go for like some basic thing at first. I think if you're really looking to make a quick buck or just like build a brand in the long term that's going to sustain itself, look at where entrepreneurs aren't going in necessarily, because there's less competition.
Right. Now, speaking about competition, that kind of ruins my next question. But I wanted to ask about basically a niche or niche selection, right? Because some people take like the approach of, hey, what's popular now? Squid Game is popular. Let me start an e-commerce store selling Squid Game jumpers. So would you go down sort of like the what's trendy, what's hot right now route when selecting your niche, or would you try to look within yourself and say, okay, I'm really interested in chess or horses, so I will start a brand around that?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, actually, because I think it depends on the type of person you are. I've seen some people make a lot of money within a short period of time, and then their stores, it's like a big up and down. Because if you can pivot fast and you can work fast and you can scale fast, great. You'll get those little blips where something's hot for 15 minutes. I really think the way to go about it in the long term, and the way as a student I got the most experience, was really building a brand. It gave me like the full view. When you're doing something in the short term, your main focus is like, right, product, video, creative ad, sell, like that's it. When you're building a brand, it's like, all right, cool, customer experience, like retarget, multi-channel functions. There's a lot more to it than that. Like, how do we optimize our website? So I think like it does depend on like what you want. I know for me, it was like a brand and something to like create value and stuff like that over the long term versus the short term. But I really think that does boil down to the person. I'd say, if you're getting into it, build a brand. And then once you have the capability, if you find a hot product or a hot trend and you really want to go hard at that, divert some time into that. So, but at the same time too, it's really interesting that you mentioned like passions and stuff, because when I used to run the accelerator, and like not run, but like was a part of it in Manchester, a lot of the times I saw the same thing. It was like vegan this, vegan that. And I think like there's so many things that are just oversaturated. And then I remember one person came in and they had like a software to find out which crops weren't gonna like die or whatever, and it was really cool. And I was like, this is so different. It's not just some like vegan cookie. And I think generally get into something weird, like just find something really weird and cool that you might not be passionate about at first, but like once you spend enough time in an industry, you actually do become passionate about it. So yeah, to answer your question, I guess just I'd say build a brand personally, unless you have the capability to function fast. But starting off, most people don't. So
yeah, I think definitely also with on the passion topic, I think it's sort of like a self-reinforcing circle with like passion and success, because generally you tend to like be more passionate and you tend to enjoy the stuff you're more successful in. So it probably is sort of like a flywheel sort of reinforcing thing.
Yeah. I mean, passion definitely helps too. But if you're self-driven and motivated, I don't think it matters like what industry you go into. I mean, I don't really think I'm too passionate about many things, but once you spend enough time in that industry, you do get very vested in it. It's like you're dating someone for 3 years, and you kind of like grow to love them over time, and you're like, I can't leave you now. You're like, and it's so interesting. Like,
Great analogy.
yeah,
Great analogy.
it's different, but yeah.
Yeah. So I will pull up another question we have from the chat. So Have you had any mentors who stand out to you throughout your career, and how did you meet them? Preferably, sort of in the e-commerce space. And I do understand this question because there, for a e-commerce beginner, right? You type in how to start e-commerce, you suddenly get a list of like 100 million results. 10,000 people are trying to pitch their course for $9.97. So where would you go and learn e-commerce from? Who?
Yeah, so this is actually like, sorry, let me just close my window. It's actually a really interesting question because when I first started, there are a few people who currently sell courses and they've done YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, one guy, he has over 100,000 followers on Instagram and like he'll message me about e-commerce. But I think I never had a mentor. What I did is I just watched videos and like gained experience personally. The thing is, there's no secret with e-commerce. Like, I hate to break it to you guys, but like, it really is just hard work, trial and error. So it comes down to three things. It's like your website, your product, and your marketing. And that's really what determines like if you're going to be successful. And you kind of need to have a mix of all three. So when I first started, I had good products when I was drop shipping, but like my marketing was shit. Like my website needed improvement. I think there's a lot of people selling courses, to be honest. Like I do speak to people often, not often, but like bi-weekly, who have courses and sell courses, and they have over 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they really have no idea what they're doing for the most part. They're always trying to figure stuff out too. And I think like, don't waste your money on a course. Invest that money into your store or some products. I've never bought a course. If I wanted to, I could probably go on YouTube and create a course and, you know, sell it for 1,000. Like most of those people who do sell courses, they make more money on their courses than their products and their mentorship. I think like people like me are just like nice in the sense that if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them or jump on a phone call. You know, I'm not trying to make my money off extorting people who are in like situations where they're trying to start stores and stuff like that. So I'd say find a mentor if you can, find someone really nice, but don't go out and pay for it. Because I feel like that's also not a genuine relationship. You know, if I'm like I've mentored a bunch of people who are in uni, you know, have had startups, but like they haven't paid for it. I've just done it out of like volunteering and stuff like that and helping out. And I think that builds more of a genuine connection because you care about them. But if they were paying me, I'd care more about their money, I think, if that makes sense. You know, if you could find a mentor, like that's great. But also don't go out and pay for courses, pay for speaking to people, because it's the value really isn't there when you think about it. If you put the time and effort in and there's a bunch of free content, it'll happen. You just need to be around the right people and speak to the right people. So I think it's more about finding people, even if they're like friends who are also doing it, or just find a group within your city or online, you know, like that's the way to go. So just be very careful about that, because I've seen a bunch of people who buy courses and they're like, this is pointless. So
Yeah, and I can absolutely testify because one of our portfolio startups from last year, Light and Air, I recall she was absolutely ecstatic, the founder, that she approached Nick once or twice just about mentorship, and every time she said that this guy just produces straight up value, and so I can testify that Nick is
yeah, cheers.
yeah, one of those people that is more than happy to help with his wealth of insight. Now, obviously, you've had a sort of an experience from both sides, right? Starting a very small, scrappy, but in the end very successful e-commerce store, and now you are observing sort of the big boys, the big brands. So, uh, are there any major differences? Because you mentioned that e-commerce, at the end of the day, it's quite simple: product, website, marketing. So are those big boys just like scaled up versions of the small, scrappy e-commerce store?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. It actually like eats at me quite a bit. So running my own company, I found that we could move a lot faster and pivot a lot faster and do a bit better than like these bigger companies. And I think that's why we had success. I think people look at big companies like, you know, online companies, maybe not Amazon because they have it down to a T, but say like another online company that you think of and you think, oh, you know, they've got everything figured out. I mean, the reality of working in a big company is that no one knows what they're doing. And I don't mean to be condescending. I just mean there's a lot of people where, you know, you'd think everything would be to a T, and it's just really not. You know, and I think big companies win because they have that leverage of they can ship for a cheaper price, so they can compete on price, and they might have a larger customer base that they've acquired over time. But as a smaller company, your advantage is that you can disrupt them through like marketing techniques. Um, like even at our company, like they don't really run TikTok ads or anything. And I'm like, if I had my own company, I'd be running TikTok ads. Like I'd be creating videos, even if they were silly, you know? And that's something we did a few times. I think we got like 20,000 views off like 3 videos conglomerately, but it's still quite good for just like some organic content. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think bigger companies aren't as quick to change and pivot, and they're not as disruptive. And I think that's where smaller companies could win, is if you have an idea and you want to try it, no one's stopping you. And I think don't be afraid of these big companies, because if you can have a decent shipping time and a good product, just go crazy on your marketing and you're going to beat them. Like, don't be afraid. Like, most of them have never been entrepreneurs in their life either. It's a very like the corporate world is very like structured, and it's a very different way of thinking. Personally too, I find it a bit more relaxing, because like when you own your own company, it's like having a baby. That's like the comparison I always use, because it's on your mind 24/7. You're always thinking about it. But when you work for someone else, I shut my laptop and I'm like, cool, that's the day. I'm not stressed. So it's just a bit different about like what you want in life. And I think it's important to go through that kind of like entrepreneurship journey, but also like my dad always said too, like just give the corporate world a try, because it is different and it's different stress levels. So I think it's just about like what you want at that point in your life, but it's worth experiencing both. So
Awesome. So with that, we are very near our closing time, but let me hit you with the last 3 super quick fire questions. So
yeah.
aren't these big elaborate ones, and there are just a mix of something I've thought of myself that I want to ask you, and a few ones that were in the Q&A. So if you had another career, because I remember on your LinkedIn claiming how basically entrepreneurship really transformed your view. So imagine you never went on this entrepreneurial journey and you had another career outside of e-commerce. What do you think it would be?
I don't know. I mean, this is pretty random, but I worked at a summer camp a lot, so I think it'd probably be like teaching or something. Just because like I worked at a summer camp for like 5 years in the U.S. and it was quite chill and I enjoyed it. So I think a big thing in the entrepreneurship community is that people don't talk about like mental health enough. And I think like the work-life balance and like stress-life balance is really like worth mentioning there. I think there's a lot of ways you can do it, but I think like you do have to prepare yourself mentally. So I think being a teacher seems pretty chill to me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely agree. We need more people like you to talk about it and promote mental health, other than just Gary Vee screaming to your face how he works 18 hours a day. Awesome. So question number 2, basically, if you were to start again, sort of knowing what you know now about like the different strategies of e-commerce, what is the first skill in e-commerce you would learn? Copywriting, website development, TikTok marketing?
I mean, it comes back to the question before. Like, if you have a good website and everything's very visually appealing, but your copy is shit, like, why would someone buy from you? I mean, that's something we're going through at, my current company. It's like we're buying a bunch of products and creating our own products, and then the copy is just a product description. And I'm like, this isn't going to convert. I would say it's kind of like a crash course, like you're going to learn more when you start a store than you learn from uni. And I genuinely do believe that, and I'll stick by that to the day I'll die. You'll learn more doing that, and it's probably more useful too in terms of getting a job. At least it was for me. But yeah, I'd say learn your web design, learn how to make it visually appealing, learn how to have good copy, then learn the marketing. If that's not working, then something's wrong with your product, so go back to your product. But then from there, it's higher level stuff, so you get to like SEO and like pay-per-click ads and like retargeting and stuff like that. But when you just start, your main focus should be marketing, product, and your web. So
Awesome. And the very last question, Nick. So you are now in your job. You're sort of like the brand connoisseur, that you get to interact with a lot of brands. You obviously have a bunch of knowledge around e-commerce. You've seen a lot of brands. But what is personally Nick Tefft's favorite online brand that sort of does it right?
That's a good question. I mean, favorite brand isn't favorite product, or just like a brand I think is doing well and it's like a really good example?
Either.
All right, yeah, let's go with the latter. So if you go on Instagram and you search in self-care is for everyone, I think that's probably the best website in terms of social proof. If you go on their reviews, it's actually insane. I'd say it's better than like Amazon, like eBay, anything you can find like that. Like their social proof is so good. Their organic marketing is so good. I'm pretty sure their ad spends like nothing. And then they really like connect directly with their audience. So that's a great example of a print on demand brand that just like has scaled so much, probably has very little ad, and it's definitely doing some things right. I'd say model your website after theirs too if you're on Shopify, because I'm pretty sure they have the basic Shopify website. They've just, added a few things here and there. So they're not paying anything crazy like £30 a month and boom, there they are. So self-care is for everyone.
Thank you, Nick. Seriously, great insight for anyone looking to sort of try e-commerce. It was an absolute pleasure.